And now, the JFK Library Foundation is pleased to present the 2025 John F. Kennedy Profile and Courage Award Ceremony.
In the long history of the world, only a few generations have been granted the role of defending freedom in its hour of maximum danger. I do not shrink from this responsibility. I welcome it. I do not believe that any of us would exchange places with any other people or any other generation. The energy, the faith, the devotion which we bring to this endeavor will light our country and all who serve it. And the glow from that fire can truly light the world.
Please welcome Caroline Kennedy, Honorary President of the John F. Kennedy Library Foundation.
Good evening, and thank you all for coming tonight. It's great to be back on Columbia Point with a community of friends who share my father's commitment to courageous leadership and a more just and peaceful world, values that he lived by and that America will always stand for. We're especially grateful for your presence this year, as many are afraid to speak out or show up. It's hard to believe that attending a black tie gala could be described as an act of courage, but here we are. To the members of the press who are here tonight, thank you for the work you do. It's never been more important. Every year we gather in May around my father's birthday, midwinter in Boston, to honor him and all those who dedicate their lives to public service. He believed that politics is a noble profession, and he inspired a generation to seek office and serve our country. They were our parents and grandparents, and now it's our turn. So first, I would like to recognize all the elected officials, past and present, here tonight, and thank you for putting our country first. Could you please stand so we could give you all a round of applause and let you know that we are especially honored to have with us two of Massachusetts' most senior leaders, extraordinary friends to our family and to the Kennedy Library, Governor Maura Healey and Senator Ed Markey. We're also honored to have Lieutenant Governor Driscoll and our friend Charlie Baker here as well. We're proud to be joined by former Taoiseach Leo Varadkar. My father would have been so excited to have a Taoiseach at his birthday party. And your presence here is a deeply personal reminder of the shared democratic, personal, and family ties that bind our two great democracies. I want to thank tonight's dinner chair, my former colleague, Ambassador Claire Cronin, who did a spectacular job representing the United States in Ireland, just as she did throughout her career here in Massachusetts. I know how proud Brockton is of your service and how thrilled the Irish were to have you, and it means so much to me and to all of us that you put a portrait of President Kennedy in the residence in Dublin. And while we're recognizing former ambassadors, I want to thank all of you for coming, especially my colleague Nick Burns, who performed the critical job of ambassador to China with skill and distinction and was always ready to share his point of view with me in Australia. There are a few other people here who make this celebration possible. They work at it day in and day out all year long. I want to thank the JFK Library Foundation Chairman, Ron Sargent, who never takes his eye off the library, even as he's now serving as interim CEO at Kroger's, where he first began his career. And I want to thank Al, okay, well, Ron definitely deserves a round of applause. I want to thank Alan Price, Director of the JFK Library, for the support he gives to the foundation and his insight and partnership, and Foundation Executive Director Rachel Day Floor, who has led the foundation to new heights, inaugurating the partnership with Prince William's Earthshot Prize and working so hard to make the library an integral part of the Boston community. Alan and Rachel represent the best in public-private partnerships, and they lead a team of dedicated and creative public servants, archivists, curators, educators, and staff who keep this library vibrant and vital. In these uncertain times, we appreciate you more than ever. The Profile and Courage Award would not be what it is if not for the steadfast and generous support of Nancy Donahue and the entire Donahue family. Dick Donahue was at my father's side during his Senate career and his presidency and served as an inaugural member of the Profile and Courage Award Committee. And Nancy, Richard, and so many other Donahues come with us to here every single year, and we're grateful to have you tonight. I want to thank my family, especially my husband Ed, who designed this award, choosing a lantern from the United States Constitution as inspiration, evoking my father's love of the sea and symbolizing our continuing search for light in the darkness. I want to thank my children for carrying forward their grandparents' ideals and living their own lives of purpose. I'm grateful that Tatiana is a member of the library board and Jack serves on the Profile and Courage Award Committee, because I learned from my Uncle Teddy that working together across generations brings joy and improves results. I would also like to thank the other members of my family who are here and have done so much to support this institution over the past 50 years, especially Stephen Smith, who has served on our board for decades and eloquently represents the library and President Kennedy's legacy around the world. I want to say one other word about the importance of family. President Kennedy couldn't have done it without his brothers and sisters, their husbands and wives. We lost my Aunt Ethel just a few months ago, and we remember her tonight. It's also why we always pay tribute to the families of our honorees. When politics is tough, it can be hardest on those who are the closest, but elected officials can't do their job without your love and support. All of America knows that that is true of the Pence family. Karen Pence has been at her husband's side throughout his career, sharing his faith and his commitment to public service. Like Vice President Pence, Karen put her own life at risk to stay in the Capitol on January 6th, as did their daughter Charlotte. We are honored to have you here tonight and hope that you will stand for a round of applause. Serving as the U.S. Ambassador to Japan and Australia taught me a lot about the region where my father fought and where our future will be determined. It also taught me a lot about the United States and gave me the chance to see up close what America means and what we stand for to the rest of the world. I learned firsthand that despite our flaws, and in part because we acknowledge them, America remains the indispensable nation. We stand for freedom, justice, and the rule of law. We uphold the global rules-based order, which has lifted millions out of poverty and enabled the greatest age of innovation and peace in history. And I learned that now, more than ever before, the challenges we face are interconnected and transnational. No country can solve them alone. Working together with friends, partners, allies, and even competitors is the only chance we have to build a better world. President Kennedy called his time the hour of maximum danger and welcomed the challenge. We're living in a similar moment now, not only because we are closer to a nuclear confrontation than at any time since the Cuban Missile Crisis, but because our government is under attack. As President Kennedy challenged us 60 years ago, now is the time for each of us to ask what we can do. The judiciary is answering my father's call, despite pizza deliveries, impeachment resolutions, and dangerous harassment. They are upholding the fundamental constitutional principles of due process and the separation of powers upon which our government is built. Artists are sacrificing. Harvard is resisting. WilmerHale is pushing back. Public servants, thank you, Bill, are reporting on the unfolding illegality. But much more is needed. Now is the time for us all to act, because we have seen in the past 100 days, we can no longer take our democracy for granted. That's the lesson of Mike Pence's courageous actions on January 6th. Few of us who watched the violent invasion of our Capitol could believe what we were seeing, and even fewer understood the real danger and its true significance. I speak for myself and probably some others here when I say that at the time, I thought Vice President Pence was just doing his job. Only later did I realize that his act of courage saved our government and warned us about what could happen and is happening right now. But that's the thing about a true act of courage. Only the person who has to weigh the personal sacrifice against the national interest knows what it will cost them. And they do the right thing anyway. Many of the people in my father's book were vilified and misunderstood, but their actions have stood the test of time and inspired later generations to act with moral courage. Vice President Pence put his life and career and that of his family on the line to execute his constitutional responsibilities. His actions preserved the fundamental democratic principle of free and fair elections, and we are proud to honor him with the 2025 Profile in Courage Award. Now it is time for me to carry on a long tradition of introducing someone in my family who you already know. But you may not know how hard he works and how much he cares about this award, this library, and his grandfather's legacy. He makes it look like fun, but nothing is more important to him than making sure his generation preserves the government to which his grandfather and beloved Uncle Teddy dedicated their lives. Please welcome Jack Uno.
Thank you, Mom. Thank you for that introduction. How about my mom? Any tougher and she'd rust. I'm so happy she's back from Australia, but make no mistake, America is now without one of its most effective diplomats. And nobody has done more for this library than my mother, except maybe my father. See the museum downstairs or the EMK Institute across the street? Ed Schlossberg designed both of them. I want to give a special thanks to Rachel Floor, the library's director. None of us would be here tonight without Rachel, and she's been a fearless leader during a critical time for the JFK Library when it has come under attack from its own federal government. Rachel, though, would be the first to give all the credit to her staff. So thank you to everybody who works here day in and day out to keep President Kennedy's legacy alive. As my mom mentioned, it's a special night also because we have so many distinguished elected officials here. Thank you. It takes courage just to be in the arena now more than ever. To those who support the JFK Library, thank you for investing in the preservation of history and tonight's celebration of courage. To my fellow members of the Award Selection Committee, thanks for the time you put in and for always making the right decision. And to my friends who showed up, it means a lot. I've had the honor of introducing the Profile in Courage Award since 2013, when I was just 20 years old. That year, we celebrated two men who both broke with their party. President George H.W. Bush raised taxes after promising not to, because, as he thought, the national deficit was too important to ignore. We also honored that year Paul Bridges, the mayor of Uvalde, Georgia, and its 400 residents. He broke ranks and joined a federal lawsuit to block the implementation of a bill which authorized ICE agents to demand papers at random traffic stops and criminalize citizens who interacted with undocumented people but did not report it. 13 years later, a lot has changed, but then again, not really, because breaking with your party has always taken courage. And now the reason we're here, the man of the hour, former Vice President of the United States, Mike Pence. No, not yet. Not quite yet. My family is proud to stand with you and yours. As my mom said, politicians rely on their families, especially when times are tough. So we're so happy that Mrs. Pence could be here as well. The Profile and Courage Award does not celebrate victory or success. Instead, the winner often has to lose something first. It's an honor reserved for elected officials who put the national interest before their own, risking their lives and their own political careers. We all remember January 6th, 2021, but 4 years later, some of us now remember it differently. Because as time passes, memories change, and now more than ever, the historical record seems up for grabs. Pardons have been issued, statements made at the time have since been amended. But the truth matters, and tonight we remember what actually happened. It wasn't a peaceful protest, it was an attempted coup. A failed insurrection that nearly succeeded and might have, if not for Mike Pence, who saved America that day. Let's briefly recall the events that took place. President Trump tried to steal the 2020 election, first by spreading lies about election fraud to undermine confidence in the results, and then, when Congress met to certify those results, he demanded Pence do the inconceivable: throw them out and replace them with his own. Trump's plan all came down to the decision of his own vice president. On January 5th, a Trump tweet made it clear, quote, "All Mike Pence has to do is send them back to the states and we win. Do it, Mike. This is a time for extreme courage," end quote. It was a time for extreme courage, and Mike Pence had it. He knew the plan was illegal, and to be sure, he consulted the law and his faith. And when the time came, with the mob calling for his execution as they stormed into the US Capitol to stop the certification vote, Pence did not flinch. He refused the president. He stayed in the Capitol with his family and worked to coordinate the federal response. Mike Pence is a proud, lifelong Republican. He served in Congress for 12 years. He was elected governor of his state and vice president. After decades of public service and dedication to his party, Pence must have known at the time that there would be no going back. He must have known that he would lose the support of President Trump and that his political future might be over. But none of that mattered. Vice President Pence and I are from different sides of the aisle, and we disagree on a lot. But that is what makes tonight so powerful. Because before we are partisans, we are patriots. We recognize tonight that the peaceful transfer of power, which we may have thought was a given, isn't really. It has and always will depend on men and women of courage. And finally, tonight we remember that the insurrection failed, and that celebrating the wins is just as important as marking the losses. For we are only following President Kennedy's timeless instructions. For he said, "It is always better to light a candle than to curse the darkness." Thank you. And now it is my honor to welcome Vice President Mike Pence to the stage to receive the 2025 Profile and Courage Award.
Ambassador Caroline Kennedy and Jack, thank you so much for those overly generous words. And to all of you for that warm welcome. I must tell you, Caroline and Jack, your father and grandfather has been a hero of mine since my youth. And to be associated in any way with President Kennedy's legacy, with his ideals, is a distinguished It's a distinction that I will cherish for the rest of my life. And I thank you. I must confess to a little bit of anxiety about coming tonight. Karen and I thought we might just be a category of two. But then we heard that David Letterman would be here, and so there'd be 3 Hoosiers in the room. And so I want to thank you all for the warm welcome. But honestly, to those gathered here tonight, Governor Healy, the other governors, including my dear friend, Governor Charlie Baker, his wife Lauren, the Taoiseach Varadkar, Senator Markey, Senator Dodd, the congressmen that are present, the members of the Library Foundation, all the distinguished guests tonight. Let me say I am profoundly humbled by this recognition and deeply honored by your presence here tonight. You know, one of the earliest memories I have as a boy in a small town in southern Indiana was sitting on the floor of our living room, on the carpet, watching our black and white television, as the caisson and the clip-clop of the horses sounded, carried the body of our fallen president to Arlington National Cemetery. I remember it to this day. Above that television hung a picture of the Pope and of John F. Kennedy. It was President Kennedy's eloquence and example that first inspired me to believe that public service was a noble calling. So to be here tonight, bearing witness to a journey that President Kennedy helped inspire in my small life is more meaningful than I can possibly express. It was a great honor to serve as your vice president through all the history that we made. But the truth is, I feel profoundly unworthy to be associated with this award or the Americans enshrined in President Kennedy's storied book. When I think of that fateful day 4 years ago, the only heroes I saw were wearing uniforms. And while I cannot see myself among those noteworthy Americans in the president's book, I will say that the words of John Quincy Adams spoke to my heart. On page 30, where he wrote in his diary that he had prayed, in his words, that the Spirit from whom every good and perfect gift might enable him to render an essential service to the country, and to never be governed in his public conduct by any consideration other than duty. I will always believe, by God's grace, I did my duty that day to support the peaceful transfer of power under the Constitution of the United States of America. The Bible says he keeps his oath even when it hurts. I know something about that. So in accepting this award, I hope you permit me to give honor and glory to the one who gave me grace and strength to see that day through, my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Secondly, we have a saying back in Indiana. And when you see a box turtle on a fence post, one thing you know for sure. He had help getting there. So I want to share this recognition tonight with some very special people. First and foremost, my beloved wife and our former Second Lady, Karen Pence. She's as strong as she is beautiful. And I've been on Team Karen for 40 years. Caroline, I'm grateful that you mentioned that history should record that along with our daughter, Karen refused to leave the Capitol that day as well. Thank you for your service to America every day of our lives together. I love you. And secondly, to our brave daughter, Charlotte, and her husband, Navy Lieutenant Henry Bond, to our Marine Corps son, Major Michael Pence, and his wife, Sarah, to our daughter, Audrey Pence Tominelli, and her husband, Dan. Thank you, guys, for your steadfast love and for being at my side every day that we served, including that day. And to our entire family back home in Indiana. And I remember my late father, a Korean War veteran named Ed Pence. And to my first generation Irish American mother. 92 years young, watching at home. Thanks for teaching me to love this country as much as you do, Mom. I love you. And to three men who stood by me through that fateful day, including my brother, Congressman Greg Pence, and two remarkably principled men who are joining us here tonight with their spouses. My former Chief of Staff, Mark Short, my General Counsel, Greg Jacob, stood in the pocket in those fateful days and never wavered. If history remembers any of our service, I pray history will remember your indispensable counsel and courage during those fateful days in the life of our nation. And finally, I want to thank the people of Indiana and America, not just for the privilege to serve and for your prayers, but for the words of encouragement over the last 4 years in airports and diners, stopping me on the street, people speaking a word of gratitude from every political background that I've heard over and over again, including through this special evening. Thank you all. It was my great honor to serve you. Every public servant in America takes the same oath. Place your hand on a Bible, raise your right hand. And you swear that you'll support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. You'll bear true faith and allegiance to the same. You take the obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion. And you pledge to well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office of which you're about to enter. And it ends with a prayer. So help me God. My Marine Corps son once reminded me, "Dad, you took the same oath I took. Nothing else matters." January 6th was a tragic day, but it became a triumph of freedom. And history will record that our institutions held when, after law enforcement secured the Capitol, leaders in both chambers, in both political parties, reconvened the very same day and finished democracy's work under the Constitution. Winston Churchill once said, "When great forces are on the move in the world, we learn that we are spirits, not animals. There's something going on in time and space and beyond time and space, which, whether we like it or not, spells duty." Our institutions held that day not because of any one person, but because leaders in both political parties, Republicans and Democrats, did their duty. So I came tonight to give credit where credit is due, but also to say in these divided times, in these anxious days, I know in my heart that we will find our way forward as one nation. Now, people who know me know I'm a conservative, but I'm not in a bad mood about it. I believe in a strong defense, limited government, the right to life, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say that might put me in the minority in this room. But I also have differences with members of my own party on spending, and tariffs, and my belief that America is the leader of the free world and must continue to stand with Ukraine until the Russian invasion is repelled and a just and lasting peace is secured. So we all have our differences, but I will always believe that there is more that unites us in this country than could ever divide us. Sometimes I tell people, you get 15 miles out of Washington, D.C., the people in this country actually get along pretty well. Because at the end of the day, for most Americans, it's about our families. It's about our kids, about our grandkids. Karen and I just learned this weekend that we're going to have a new grandson come this fall. That makes 5. Americans long just to make an honest living, to live, to work, to worship according to the dictates of their conscience. But to forge a future together, we have to find common ground. And I hope in some small way, my presence here tonight is a reminder that whatever differences we may have as Americans, the Constitution is the common ground on which we stand. It's what binds us together across time and across generations. It levels every barrier of race and creed and religion. It's what makes us one people, one family. And I believe the Constitution is the foundation on which we can forge a future of security and prosperity for all of the American people. And as I stand before you tonight, deeply humbled by this honor, I want to assure you that I know we will forge that future. For I have faith. You know, in all my travels as your vice president, and as a governor and a congressman, I've seen the American people in good times and bad. Farmers, factory workers, doctors, and nurses rising to the challenge to make a living, to love their neighbors. I've also seen our people in the wake of tragedy, hurricanes, wildfires, and losses of human origin. And I am convinced that the American people are the most faithful, resilient, hardworking, generous, and patriotic people the world has ever known. I have faith in the countless Americans who make this country work every day, and so should you. People who get up every morning, put in an honest day's work, look after their families, do the right thing when nobody's watching, and never get a chance for a night like this. I want you to know we see you. We honor you. And we know you are the ones that make America great and always will. And I have that other kind of faith as well. Above the mantle in our home since before our first successful election 25 years ago is a framed parchment Karen gave me. Bears the words of the prophet Jeremiah and reads, "For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future." God is not done with America yet. And I believe with all my heart, if we'll turn our hearts to Him, as President Kennedy said, ask His blessing and help, make His work on earth our own, America's best days are yet to come. So help us God. Thank you for this honor. May God bless the memory of President John F. Kennedy, and God bless you all.